Hello there, and welcome to Lesson 3. We will be creating basic objects using Adobe Illustrator CS5. Okay, when we left on the last lesson, this is what your screen looked like. You have your standard artboard opened up. You have your grid turned on in the background. I personally like to have my navigator and my pathfinder also turned on, and you find those under Window. If it has a check mark next to it, it is open. Okay, but you see there's plenty of others that are not at this point. I am going to go ahead and turn on my swatches palette. You can turn on swatches here. You can also click on this button on your palette and you'll come up with the basic swatch panel. Okay, now this is the basic swatch panel, but there are also a number of other specialized swatch panels that you can get to. And if you go back under Window and go to Swatch Libraries, you see there are a large variety of different types of palettes that you might choose to use. There you go, foods under ice cream. You have all different ice cream type colors. So some people like to create their own colors, and I'll show you how to do that in a later lesson. Some people prefer to use the kind of already designed palettes. And it really depends on your own personal preference and how good you are with color. Some people have really sensitive eyes to different color gradations and kind of differences, and other people struggle with that a little bit. So there's different ways that you can use color in this program. For now, we're just going to use the basic swatches. It has a pretty good variety of bright colors that show up nicely on the screen. Also has a variety of gray. And it has some basic gradations and a couple kind of simple patterns and such. And we'll go into these more at a later point in time. On your swatches, you also have a white box with a red triangle or a red line across it. This means that it is a color of none. It's like an absent color, as opposed to white, which is of course white. And another thing I like about the grid is that you can see the difference between an object that is clear or with no color and an object that has a white fill to it. So this kind of makes it quite easy to tell the difference. So we're going to use some of our basic objects some of our basic tools to create some simple objects. Okay, now most of your objects will start by using something in here. And if you recall from the last lesson, any of these tools that has that little black triangle in the bottom corner can be expanded and torn off. So now you have like a little subtool menu. And in here you can do a rectangle, you can do a rounded rectangle, an ellipse, a polygon, a star, or a flare. I've actually never had use for the flare tool yet, but it does have some really pretty effects. So I'm going to show you all of these quickly, and you can play with these on your own as well. Most of what you will be designing in Illustrator, you're going to be starting with something in here. There are other ways of creating basic objects, which I will show you, but this is kind of the most basic, simple way of starting. So I'm going to click on my rectangle tool. My colors have already been defaulted to a black stroke to a white fill. And as I draw my rectangle by clicking and dragging, you will see that it will create an object with a white fill and a black stroke. This will not come up as a black stroke as long as the object is selected. And when an object is selected, it has this blue outline with the anchor points on the edges. If you want to see just the stroke, you can deselect it, and you'll see it's a white object with a black stroke. Now for the point of this demonstration, I'm going to increase the stroke of my objects just so that you guys can see it a little bit better on the screen. So again, using the rectangle tool, you can click and you can drag, and you see it has a heavier stroke now. You can also simply click on your screen and you can put in exact dimensions. Perhaps you need a 2 by 2 square, and this is one way to get an exact shape or exact size to your shape, and it will create that for you. Okay, and as you're clicking and dragging, if you hold down the Shift key, it will also restrain that to a perfect square. So if you want a square as opposed to a rectangle, you either hold down the Shift key or you click on the screen to get that box where you can specify what the size is. Okay, so those are basic rectangles. Moving on to the rounded rectangle, I'm also going to change the color just so that you can see this a little bit different. I'm going to click and go into my color and give these a red fill. Anything which is selected will also take on that red fill color. So I'm going to deselect that just for a moment. Alright, I'm going to go into rounded rectangle. And you see that the edge of the corners on this are rounded. Now as you click and drag, if you stay clicked down, you can use your up and down arrow button to make these corners softer or harder. Okay. And again, you can click and drag like I'm doing here. You can also simply click and you can type in your dimensions and type in your corner radius. Okay, and shift will also work on this. Okay, so you can have, if you push down shift while you're clicking and dragging, it will drag out a perfect square, in this case with the rounded corners that I specified. Those are rounded rectangles. The next shape I'm going to create will be an ellipse. Ellipses can be more of an oval shape, depending on which direction you click and drag. And I'm going to change the color on these as well. Okay, it can be softer or harder. And if you want a perfect circle, you of course hit the shift key. And that will give you a perfect circle. You can also click on the background and type in your dimensions. And it will give you the perfect circle of the exact size that you've requested. And that is the circle or the ellipse tool. It's really called the ellipse tool, but it does create perfect circles or ovals as you need it to. Next is the polygon tool. And polygon tool works much the same. This is where I really like the grid, because you can see that as I click and drag out, you can choose to have this line up with the grid so it's a nice flat bottom, or not if you want. It's really up to you how you want to design. Okay, but you can click and drag and change the color here. Same as you do on all the others, click and drag, and you can rotate it around. Or you can simply click on the background, designate the radius and the number of sides that you want. And also, as you are clicking and dragging, you can also use your up-down arrow keys to create more or fewer sides. And of course you saw the square at 4 sides. And a triangle can be created by using a 3-sided polygon. Get that lined up a little bit. Okay, and that is your polygon tool. Your stars tool works almost the same as polygon. As you click and drag, you can increase or decrease the number of points on your circle by using your up and down arrow keys. And give that a different color. You can also click on the background and designate the size and the number of points off your star. And these are all your basic objects. And the last one is the flare tool. And for the flare tool to show up well, it's usually best to start with a background of a fairly dark color. So I'm just going to create a dark object in the background here, just so you can see the flare tool. The flare tool kind of has a double click system for setting it up. You click, you click and drag, and then you click again, and it gives you that nice flare tool, or that nice flare. So you click and drag to get the size you want, and then you move away, and you get the extension of the flare. Okay, they have a really pretty look, just haven't had a use for them yet, but perhaps one of you will find a good use for yours this semester. You can also simply click on the background, and you can put in all your specifications here. as simple or as complex as you wish. Okay, so there's a lot of nice things that you can do, but these do show up best on dark colors, but you can use them on light colors as well. You can see some of the overspill here, and it certainly does still come up on a light color background. Now everything that I've done so far, you will see how much of that is within the artboard space, which is that 8.5 by 11 inch space. You'll also see it on my navigator panel down here. Only the things within the artboard will be seen in the PDF file or on the graded document that your peers will see and that I will see. So if you're working, make sure that anything you want me to see stays within that artboard. If it's outside of the artboard, I will not see it. You can leave it there if you want to. I just simply won't. I won't see it. Okay, so I'm using my navigator tool here just to zoom in and zoom out. Now, as you're working, if you do something that you don't like, if you decided that, oh, that's a hideous color, I don't like it, the dimensions are wrong, spacing is wrong, whatever the case is, there is a magic keyboard shortcut called undo, and that is, in the Apple case, it's Apple Z. And Apple Z is an undo tool that will allow you to undo up to 99 steps. And this is a wonderful little keyboard shortcut. If you're on a PC, definitely learn the undo shortcut. Okay, you can also get the undo up in the edit menu. So you can always undo, undo, undo. And there's you can also redo, of course, which is Apple Shift Z. But undo is the one that we're using right now. So you can take it right back to a clean screen if you want. You can also open up a new document. Alright, I'm going to stop this lesson here and let you experiment with that. And when we continue with lesson 3, part B, I will start showing you how to create with lines.